You're listening to episode 39 of the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, I'm chatting with food blogger Taylor Kiser about her struggle with perfectionism and disordered eating and how her life has changed since she overcame her eating disorder and started living out her purpose. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Laura Schoenfeld. I'm a registered dietitian and coach trained in functional medicine with a passion for helping women just like you ditch perfectionism and use food, fitness, and self-care to fuel your bigger God-given purpose. I believe that it's possible to achieve your biggest life-changing goals without the frustration, obsession, or negative self-talk that so many women subject themselves to every day. All you need are the right tools, the right mindset, and the faith to turn your dreams into reality. I'm here to guide you along the way. The truth is that you are so much more than a body, and I'm on a mission to help you change the way you think and act at a core beliefs level so you can transform your physical, mental, and spiritual health from the inside out. Are you ready to become fed and fearless in your pursuit of a healthy, meaningful life? Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. Hey there, you're listening to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm Laura Schoenfeld. I'm your host as always. And on today's episode, we have one of my business coaching clients who has been someone that I've been working with since really the end of last year. So we're getting close to like 8-9 months at this point. And I've gotten to know this person better through our time together. And it's been really awesome to watch her business and her message really blossom since we started together. Now, this person also has a book that just came out in the last couple weeks called Eat the Cookie. And I'm just really excited to have her on the show today to talk about not only her book and what's in her book, but also her experience as a business owner and the way that she is taking care of herself as a busy blogger. So I'm very excited to have with me today Taylor Kiser. Taylor is the blogger, recipe developer, photographer, and general mess maker behind the blog Food, Faith, Fitness. Her blog aims to show that eating healthfully does not have to equal bland and boring. It can be easy to make and totally delicious. Taylor believes in living a balanced life with Christ at the center. However, Taylor also believes that moderation is key. So sometimes it's okay to just go and eat a cookie, which is why she has a book called Eat the Cookie. When she isn't blogging, you can find Taylor at the gym, at her Bible study, or just snuggling up on the couch with her husband and her dog watching the Food Network. Taylor also has a not-so-secret obsession with all things peanut butter, cookie dough, even better when they're together, pink, and leopard print. So I'm excited for you to get to know Taylor. She has a lot of wisdom and life experience to share about her history overcoming not only one major eating disorder, but really another bout of orthorexia, which is another type of disordered eating. She has overcome those things twice. And so she has a lot to share about how to partner with God when becoming a more free and balanced eater and being able to live a healthy life where you're taking care of yourself, but not being obsessive about it. So without further ado, here is Taylor. All right, everybody, I'm so excited to have with me on the show today, my client and friend, Taylor Kiser. How you doing today, Taylor?
So good. Thanks so much for being here. So pumped.
Yay. Well, I just a couple weeks ago finished reading your book. Yay. And I know that by the time this episode comes out, it'll have been out for, I think, a couple weeks. So we're going to definitely link to it in the show notes. Taylor's book is called Eat the Cookie. And it's funny, my husband, anytime he hears me talking to you on like Voxer or something like that, he's like, are you guys going to eat the cookie? I'm like, oh my gosh, stop. So
I love him. That's amazing.
Yeah. So Taylor has a book out, which is a huge accomplishment. Writing a book is no joke. So we will definitely be linking to her book. But what I wanted to do is have Taylor come on the show today and talk to you all a little bit about her story and some of the stuff that she goes over in the book. Obviously, we're not going to get through all of it, but just some of the bigger themes and some of the things that she has learned along the way, especially relating to how her faith affects her health habits. So let's just give everybody a little bit of a background on you and what you've been through, because you've been through some challenging times with food and body image and health in general. So tell us your story.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, my story has started a long time ago. So first, like high level, I blog at foodfaithfitness.com. So that's kind of what I do. I'm a blogger. I do healthy recipes. I also talk about fitness and faith, like you would suspect with Food Faith Fitness being the name. And then, like you said, author of Eat the Cookie. So if we rewind to when I was about 13 and I'm almost 30 now, so quite a long time ago, I'm Canadian. So when we're 13, we're going into high school. There's no middle school. So I was going into high school, and just like a normal girl who's going to high school, I was a little boy crazy, and I wanted the boys to think I was pretty, and I wanted to be fit and skinny and like all these things that we want. And so I was never overweight or anything, but I just, like when you're 12, 13, you have that little baby fat. And so I was like, well, I want to lose this. And I grew up in a healthy family, not obsessive about diets or anything. I never heard about diets. But just we ran, we ate, well, and all those kinds of things. So I started running with my dad, thinking this was a healthy, good thing. And it was at first, but I also have a type A plus personality, as my husband says, and I'm very perfectionistic, which I'm sure, Laura, you'll know working with me. But so that I just kind of latched onto that, because as I started running, naturally, I lost weight. People started praising me for it, as naturally they do. And it just got very, very dark very quickly. And within a few months, I actually ended up in the hospital with anorexia and told I was going to die. And, when you're 13 and a doctor says you're going to die, it's a little bit of a wake up call, at least for me. I didn't want to. So I actually fully recovered. I did everything I could. I ate the food. I did the things. I didn't do the things because I wasn't allowed to do anything. I was on bed rest for almost a year. And then throughout my high school years, I really was like fully recovered. Like I truly believe I was. I didn't think about calories. I ate well. I was healthy, but I just lived my life. And then when I was around 19, 20, I was dating this guy who I thought I was going to marry. And then we broke up. And as a crazy 20-year-old, I thought my life was over and I was going to die alone, craziness at 21, 20. And then, so I kind of went back, I guess, subconsciously. I felt very out of control with my life. And so subconsciously, I went back to controlling food. I was never, anorexic again, but definitely lost a lot of weight, very obsessed with the gym, couldn't miss the gym, had to be perfect with my eating, counted every gram, everything I did revolved around my eating schedule. And could I go to the gym or could I not, which is very hard on my marriage. I got married during this time, my blog, just everything. So that was probably about a 10-year journey of just not, doing everything in the name of health, but actually not being physically healthy, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but also really mentally unhealthy and spiritually unhealthy, and just seeking this perfection and finding my worth and identity and value in what my body looked like and how I ate. And then just a couple of years ago, I just had this like rock bottom moment. And the next day I was just like, this is not what the Lord has for me. He doesn't want me to miss date nights and to obsess about food and my body and think about it more than I'm thinking about him. And so the next day I actually quit the gym for a year and I ate a bunch of food and I gained weight. I got my period back and I got my body mostly healthy. I'm still working through that because it takes a freaking long time to heal when you've been, under fueling for 10 years. But now I'm just living free and healthy and happy.
Awesome. And what was that moment that you realized it was something you didn't want to do anymore again?
Yeah. So it was actually date night with my husband and we were doing like at home Italian night. And so he was like, let's make pasta. And like, of course my brain was like, carbs. Oh my gosh, carbs are bad, and wine and all these like crazy things. And so we were grocery shopping and he was like filling the grocery cart with butter and flour. And I was like I could just like feel myself like freaking out. And then we were going home to cook it. And naturally I cooked and he drank the wine because he can't cook and I'm a food blogger. And so I actually made the recipe like wrong on purpose because I didn't want to eat it. So I was just like, oh, sorry, husband, it just didn't work, and like I knew that purposely I had made it wrong. And so that night I just went to bed crying because I was like, this can't be my life. Like I can't be afraid to eat pasta. I can't not enjoy date night with my husband just because of what it will possibly do to my body. And so that was very much like this. Like I wasted almost all of my 20s. It really needs to change.
Mm-hmm. Do you think your husband knew all this stuff was going on, or were you like keeping it hidden from him?
Oh no, he knew at first. Like, when we first met, of course, I was on my best behavior because you're in that like, I want you to marry me phase. And then once we were married, like we've been in counseling for it. Like I actually he kind of got some disordered issues around food just because of living with me, which we didn't even realize until I recovered just some of his thoughts around food. But no, it was definitely a struggle for a good, the first 5 years of our marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were able to kind of keep all that hidden or if it was something that just came out and couldn't really. I mean, I feel like with marriage, there's really not a lot of stuff you can hide.
No.
I'm always shocked when I hear of people that were like blindsided by their spouse doing something. I'm like, I don't know how you do that. But I'm also somebody who's maybe honest to a fault. So
Same.
I don't understand the concept of hiding things from people. So so I know that in both of these situations, both when you were a young teenager and again in your 20s, when you kind of had that second rock bottom experience, how did your faith play a role in your recovery from your disordered eating?
Yeah. So in the first instance, when I was really young, like I grew up in a Christian home. So like I was born in a pew, like I had faith, but it was never my own faith. It was just like, I went to church because my parents told me to, and I did my little chicken soup for the teenage soul and all those things. But then when I was in the hospital, I literally was not allowed to do anything. Like I wasn't allowed to get up to go to the bathroom and take a shower. I had my Bible. So that's really when I started to read my Bible, and I started like a scripture journal, which I still have to this day, about scriptures that just, really spoke to me. So that's when I really found my faith, and it really was real to me. And I think that is one of the only reasons that I made a full recovery, because not everybody does, especially, when you're young, and when I was truly free in that time, because I really read the Bible as if God was speaking to me, and like really that he was saying that I was fearfully and wonderfully made. And he was saying that I'm beautiful and flawless and all these things, not like some other woman, not like he's saying that to some other woman, which I think so many women read the Bible as. It's like not for them, it's for someone else. And so that really grounded me, and that allowed me to recover. And then, through my teens, like I kind of fell away like we all do, and had our little party phases. And then when I met my husband, I kind of started to discover my faith again, because he's a very, very strong man of faith. And then as I was recovering the second time, that's also when I really dug back into my faith and really realized, like I said, this is not what God has for me. So kind of going to the Bible and like, what does God have for me? What does God say he wants for me? And really learning and understanding that, as opposing to just like, because I just didn't really know before. Like I knew it in my head, but not really truly in my heart. So really understanding that he doesn't want this for me, that he wants good things for his children, and that this life that I had right now wasn't a good thing. Like there was really nothing good other than the fact that I had this body, but it wasn't even a healthy body. It wasn't allowing me to do anything. So really digging into that and seeing what his purpose for my life was, and realizing that I wasn't living that, really allowed me to recover the second time.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you have a pretty big audience, and a lot of them are Christian women that are struggling with things like perfectionism and disordered eating. And why do you think that, even though, and obviously we're not going to speak for all Christian women, because I think everybody's different. I've only been Christian for like 8 years now. So, we're all in different phases of our journey. But why do you think so many of them do struggle with perfectionism, especially around their food?
I think a couple of reasons. I think one, the enemy likes to use the tool of distraction. And I think it's really easy to become distracted from the Lord, especially in this day and age when we're surrounded by Instagram and Facebook and shiny things. And, we're just like always looking and always comparing ourselves, because we're distracted from our calling, and we're comparing our food intake and our body to someone else on Instagram. And we don't even know the whole story. Like, for example, I'm sure people compared themselves to me, but I was sick, like mentally and physically. You don't know that. So I think one, because we're distracted from our purpose because of just all these things that we're surrounded by, and especially just seeing other women's bodies and how they eat. It's, it's so easy just to compare. And then secondly, I think, like I said before, like so many women are reading the Bible as if it's for someone else. When it says you're altogether beautiful or you're flawless, like maybe that's for someone else over there, but God doesn't really think that about me. And so they're really not internalizing that the Lord does see them as his daughter, his chosen, beautiful, perfect, perfect in his eyes women. And so we're always striving for something, because we're not resting in the fact that God sees us as a perfect person, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's easy to have the knowledge of like the scripture itself,
yes,
but then not actually be living with that as being a true thing. It's almost like, oh yeah, it's a nice story. It's a nice book, you know, but it's like not true in those people's minds. Or, okay, it's true in this area, but it's not true when it comes to my body, or when it comes to...
Yeah, we pick and choose like what it applies to, but without thinking it actually applies to everything.
Yeah. Well, and I guess part of the challenge is that the Bible was written at a time where people didn't really have a lot of choice about what they were eating, and there were no photographs and there were no social media. And like, obviously God knew all of this stuff was coming when he was writing or inspiring what was written, or, you know, when Jesus was here talking about these things. But I think it's a little easier to like say, well, I'm not murdering anybody. I'm not cheating on my husband. Like, you know, I'm not doing all those things that they were talking about. So, you know, it doesn't like, I don't worship idols. I don't have like a statue of Baal in my house or something, but then they don't realize that like, oh no, you really are still worshiping idols.
I was going to say that.
Idol. Yeah.
Yeah, so, exactly.
And just as a side note, so you're pretty involved in like the whole online blogger, influencer kind of community space. Do you see this being a big issue in that world where it's like, you know, things are being shown that are not really the way it is under the surface?
100%, especially like in the fitness space. Like I've just seen so many women, myself included, you know, who are healthy bloggers and they're preaching on the whatever diet and they're skinny and they're putting their little skinny pictures. And then a couple of years later, they come out saying they had an eating disorder or they lost their period or they're just mentally unwell. So I just think that, like I said, you just don't know who you're comparing yourself to. You don't know the full story. Like I always said, like I would never wish my life on anyone. And people always thought that like I was so put together. I had this great blog. I had this great body and this husband and blah, blah, blah. But like I always said, I would never wish my life. So you just don't know the story.
Mm-hmm. So knowing that there's probably a lot of people out there that look a certain way or seem happy on social media, but really aren't, or maybe are doing behaviors that are really not healthy or safe or, you know, whatever we want to say about that. For the people that are observing this stuff, the women that are scrolling through Instagram and like seeing these photos and, you know, following these influencers, what advice do you have for them to help them not get wrapped up in what these influencers are doing on their social media feeds?
I think one, just to remember that social media is a highlight reel. Like we all know this in our heads, but like you said, we don't really believe it in our hearts. Like we still think that maybe that one person is just posting their real life, but like literally no one is. So remember that. And then second, like take it to the Bible. Like what does the Bible say about, you know, comparing yourself? It says not to do it. It says, like we said, you are perfect in your own way and only the Lord is perfect. When we're comparing ourselves, this is one thing that I think is really important. We're actually almost like demeaning the other person because we're only seeing that person as someone to compare ourselves to. And we almost have to tear them down to make ourselves feel better and build ourselves up. And that's not what the Lord wants us to do to our sisters in Christ. Like he wants us to root each other on. So we have to stop tearing each other down, even though it's subconsciously, and also realize that like, you know, maybe she doesn't have me. Maybe we don't see what's going on behind closed doors. Maybe her life is good. Like we don't know, but regardless, the Lord has placed her somewhere and he's placed us somewhere with our certain body and whatever that looks like. And that's okay because we're all part of the body of Christ. Like you don't get mad at your leg because it can't do what your arm can do. So, you know, we have to realize that she has her place and she's doing her thing regardless of what the Lord made her look like. The Lord made us look a certain way and he's having us do our thing so we can go spread the body of Christ. We all work together and I would love to see us building each other up as opposed to tearing each other down, even if subconsciously to make ourselves feel better.
Or even, you know, tearing ourselves down because of what somebody else is doing.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really easy to compare to anybody who's doing something that you want to do or, you know, whether that's their body or their fitness level or their business, like seeing, again, the highlight reel and thinking, oh, I wish my life was like that. And one, you don't know what their life is like, right? So they could be miserable and you have no idea. But even if they're not miserable, even if they're happy and they're doing things well, it's like, can we be happy for them and just like feel inspired by them?
Yes, absolutely.
Rather than feeling like somehow their success is taking away from ours in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's something that, you know, if you're gonna follow people on Instagram or social media, Facebook, whatever, TikTok, I don't even know all the things the kids are doing these days. But if you're gonna follow someone on social media, I think it's really important to always check yourself. Like, is this person really inspiring me to be the best version of me? Or am I wishing I was them?
Exactly.
And that's, if you're starting to wish you were somebody else, then it's a problem. But if you're like, oh, wow, seeing what they're doing makes me realize what's possible in my life. And now I'm going to like, you know, be more confident in myself. Like that's, I think the only reason why social media is valuable is being able to see what's possible. And so how has your life changed since you overcame the second round of the disordered eating?
It's like literally completely different. Like even just to this day, sometimes like we'll go out for dinner, like just so spontaneously. And my husband will be like, "Are you sure?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." Like he just like doesn't even compute sometimes that like we can just go out for dinner. We can just go and have wine. Sometimes we can skip the gym if we feel like it. Like those are things I never used to do. There was never any room for spontaneity. So we can just do things now. I don't have to like obsess about everything that I eat, or we don't have to have all these like conversations or arguments about the fact that, you know, he planned a date day and I'm like, well, how about after the gym? Like there's just so much stuff has like opened up for me. And then my faith has grown so much especially through writing the book, just because I had to, you know, really dig deeper into the Bible and find all the words to write and all the things I wanted to say, and just seeing that God is taking care of me. Like, you know, when I was going through my disordered eating, I thought if I just quit the gym and started eating, I would just gain 1 million pounds and all these things. And like, that didn't happen. Just like God took care of me. He has deepened my faith. And it's like, my life just feels like free and full and happy. I mean, not all the time, obviously I'm not perfect. But it just feels like I'm sort of aligned and walking in that mostly free life that the Lord has for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's always a journey. Everybody is on a various level of like the amount of freedom that they can walk in. I mean, I think if we were really accessing the level of freedom we have, it would be kind of insane. Like I'm not in a bad way, but like, you know, it would be quite remarkable. So I think we're all,
so like, you know,
yeah. And I think we're all working in that direction, and that's the goal. So, you know, I'm really glad that element of food obsession and, you know, distraction with your body, I think just being able to release that, I'm sure has let you open yourself up to a lot of awesome stuff in your life that you didn't have access to before.
Exactly. Especially like when you're just thinking about your body and food all the time, like you don't even realize how much space in your brain that takes until it's gone. And then you can actually think about God and business and family and friends and like all these things that are like more important.
Mm-hmm. So, and you just made me think of something. Why do you think so many women, Christian or not, have such a hard time letting go of the disordered eating behaviors and beliefs?
I think for a few reasons, especially like speaking from experience. One, we like to control and we don't want to give it up because we feel like we're in control when we're controlling what we eat and how we move. And although like what most women don't realize is actually we're being controlled by, you know, our body and food. So we think we're in control, but actually we're not. So it's one reason. And two, I think, you know, for me, especially like we get so much of our worth and identity in that. Like I always used to people call me like the fitness queen. And then I identified as like the fitness queen or the fit girl. And like, I was so afraid to give that up because we put all these pieces together of, you know, our body image issues and our food disorders. And that becomes like who we are. And we don't really know who we are without it. And so it's really scary to give that up because we're actually going to have to like learn about ourselves again and start to feel these feelings and start to like really discover who we are. And sometimes that can be a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit scary.
And it's interesting, something that I noticed with a lot of the women I talk to that are not getting their periods. And I don't know if you had this experience as well, but a lot of times because they don't have even remotely healthy hormones, their hormones are really, really low. I find that a lot of times they don't actually have the emotional range that even allows them to realize that something is wrong. Did you ever feel like that you were just kind of like emotionally flat and it didn't feel like you needed to change because you didn't feel that like depth of pain that you truly were in?
Yeah, I mean, my husband used to say that I had the heart of stone. Like I have like no empathy, like not in like in a joking way, but like also like, you know, there's always a little bit of truth behind every just kidding, you know? So like I literally, I was not empathetic and like I just had like no emotions. I wasn't super loving, and I'm still working through these things, like, you know, just trying to get all my emotions and feelings back on track after having low hormones. But yeah, I definitely didn't realize that it was that bad. Like it was just like, this is just my life and it's fine. And it's like, everyone's like, no, this is not you. Because as a child, I was bubbly and happy and fun and energetic, and it just wasn't that as an adult.
Yeah, I see a lot of women that are in my Get Your Period Back program being like, is it normal to feel like really sad and really happy right now? I'm like, that's probably just normal emotions that you're now experiencing that you haven't had for a while. So they're like, it's kind of cool, kind of weird. Like nobody wants to feel super sad all the time. And certainly that's, if somebody's always sad, that's not normal. But I think a lot of times they didn't even realize how emotionally flat they were until they start recovering those normal hormones. And it's like, oh, wow. Now I realize how things were. And it's like much easier for them to see at that point that wasn't good, that wasn't the best way for them to be living, and that they were missing out on a lot of joy even in their life because of the lack of emotions.
Yeah, 100% agree.
So I'm curious, because I know that you are a very busy lady in general. So you have a really busy blog, and you just wrote a book, and I know that you have coaching programs and that, or I guess more like online programs, that kind of thing. So you're busy, and I'm curious, how do you now approach caring for your physical and mental health with how busy you are as a blogger and business owner?
Well, as you know, I'm working on this area and taking time to rest, as you laugh. So especially now that like my husband was in school and all those kinds of things, like I honestly, to be honest, I wasn't taking great care of my mental health, just because I was always busy. But now that he's done that, like just trying to take weekends off is going to be really important for me, and like trying to make friends now that we've moved and see my family once the border opens. And I've been really good in the past couple of weeks about, taking the evenings off too. And it's still really important for me to go to the gym. So I still try to hit the gym 4 or 5 days a week, but I'm also not obsessed about it anymore. Like if, we're probably gonna go hiking tomorrow, I'll just skip it, and that's not a big deal. And still trying to choose, mostly whole foods, but also like removing the view of like good and bad food. And if I want to go out and have some wine and have some cookies, like that's okay too. And I think that's really important just for like your overall health, just to kind of remove those labels and making sure I'm honoring my spiritual health. The first thing I do in the morning before I get on the computer and do my work is spend time with God. And if I don't do it, I know that I'm going to be an angry, grumpy person all day long. So just really looking after like my body, mind, and soul health is really kind of how I take care of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like because your husband was not even living with you for a while because of his, is it called an internship, or what do they call it?
Rotations, clinical rotations. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I feel like this is a different situation, but just with the lockdown and everything happening and things being so hard to stuff's kind of opening at this point, but also not really. Yeah. I feel like for me, it's really hard to not work because it's like,
what else am I going to do?
Well, what else do I? Yeah, exactly. So, so it's been interesting just the last couple months. Like I've gotten a lot done, and it's not like I certainly do not work myself into the ground. Like I really do try to get off by 6, 7 o'clock at the latest. This day that we're talking today, I was up super late working because of a launch that I was participating in. But other than that, I'm pretty good at not working on weekends and stuff. So, so what I was going to say is that sometimes it's not even a matter of like being a perfectionist or chasing something or like trying to chase your self-worth. It's almost just like you have to remember to have balance, even if you're enjoying what you're doing. And even if you're like, oh, this is exciting, it's a new thing, I'm trying this. And like, it can just get really easy to get wrapped up in work, especially as an entrepreneur, because it's like, well, this is what I enjoy. And, if I take time off to go see a friend, like, how does that affect the money that I make this week or whatever? So
yeah, that's totally me.
Yeah. So, and it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs deal with. So, you're definitely not alone, but it is important. One of my favorite mentors, and now I guess he's your mentor too, is James Wedmore. And he's always saying that the rest is the work. And so, as entrepreneurs, we definitely need rest to be able to be at our best with the work that we're doing. Now, when it comes to your blog, so you started that before you recovered the second time from the disordered eating, right?
Yes, I started that 7 years ago.
What was the original goal when you started that?
That very much started out of like, I want to show the world how to be healthy and how it can be easy and all these crazy special diets and all those kinds of things. It kind of started out as like a very disordered mentality, but then obviously through the years, now it's kind of shifted to, it's still kind of the same recipes, but a different approach. And like, this is how you should eat, not should, but this is how it's good for you to eat most of the time. But like, go and eat a cookie, go and eat a brownie, and like remove those labels of, good and bad food.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of still focused on improving the quality of food in people's diets, but getting to enjoy food while they're at it. And with your blog, what are you most passionate about when it comes to sharing things like health and fitness and nutrition information and faith and all of that? What do you feel like you're really focusing on right now?
I think it's like that balance, but also like helping women. Because I think sometimes like there's like this belief that like you can't, practice intuitive eating without like wanting to desire to change your body composition or anything like that. So I think it's like helping women navigate how to still have those desires, but to also do those things and bring Christ into it, and to not get into that crazy restrictive mindset of like good or bad food or counting every single calorie, but having that, freedom that the Lord has for us while still nourishing our foods, while still having goals, and not allowing ourselves to go like too far one way or the other, if that makes sense, like that beautiful middle ground.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that somebody has to have health goals to be able to take care of their body?
No, if you want to, that's cool, but I don't think you definitely don't have to, as long as you're just focusing on what makes you feel good and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always feel like everyone wants to have specific goals to work on. And like, as an example, when I train with my trainer, he's always like, well, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to like feel strong and feel healthy and just have something to get better at, Yeah. It's not that there's some specific outcome that I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that's been a really helpful mindset for me to take around exercise. Cause for sure in the past, I used to be like in college, I would go to the gym like 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I wasn't like super underweight or anything, but college was kind of easy for me. So I just had a lot of free time and I was like, oh, I'll just go to the gym. And like, it was always about how many calories am I burning? Like, okay, I need to burn 500 calories. Let me like do that. And then I've like checked the box for the day. So it's nice now taking the mindset around fitness and seeing it as like something that can be fun and really more about like just the actual practice of it, rather than it being like, this is what I have to do, or this is the results that I have to get when I'm doing it. So, now I'm curious, I'm like a decent cook, pretty good, but I do not like do recipes. I don't know how to make recipes, like create recipes. And I'm usually just one of those people that's just like, I'm just going to throw stuff together and it does come out good. Like I'm a decent cook in general. It's just not like, I'm not like chef level or whatever. And I certainly do not have the skills to like completely transform recipes. And to the disdain of my husband, I am not a baker.
Oh no,
yes,
poor guy.
I do not. It was funny this morning. He was, what was he saying? Oh, he was joking about the kind of cookies that I like. Cause my mom, I think he knew I was interviewing you today. And he's like, you guys gonna eat the cookies? And he's like, or I shouldn't even call them cookies. Cause basically the cookies that my mom makes are very different than the cookies that he's used to. And he was like, I should say, are you guys gonna eat the biscuits? I'm like, they're not biscuits. What are you talking about? And he was like, well, when you make them, they're like XYZ and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, when have I ever made cookies? I don't think I've baked cookies once since we've known each other. And he was like, yeah, I guess you're just kind of like, you just know the cookies you like. You don't make the cookies that way. So that gives you a peek into the lack of energy and time and attention I put into things like baking and recipe following and that kind of thing. So all of that said, a lot of times I talk to clients who want to know, like, how do they make recipes healthier? And I'm not really the right person to ask because literally when I cook, it's like, all right, get the protein, get the veggies, get the starch. Cool, we're done. So do you have any tips for the listeners about how they can turn a regular recipe that they like into something more health friendly, other than just going to your blog and getting the done for you recipes from your blog?
Well, dang, that's what I was going to say. But it is challenging, especially like when you're doing like a baking recipe, because like I can't just give you a blanket statement because baking is a science.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think baking with different ingredients is like like you said, it's literally a science experiment. So
like I would not recommend.
Right. Follow a recipe for that. Don't even bother trying. I've done it before where I tried to make up a recipe for that and it was awful. And I was like, never doing this again. So, but what about like more regular meals? Are there tips or tricks you have for taking something that they like and maybe making it a little healthier?
Yeah, totally. So you can swap, like if you're doing rice, like, I mean, I wouldn't say go all cauliflower rice because our body needs carbs, but you could do like half cauliflower rice and you can put cauliflower in a blender and rice it if you want to add some veggies. I always keep like frozen cauliflower on hand and I throw it into like oatmeal, which sounds gross, but it's delicious. Like in smoothies, like just really easy ways to like add veggies to your plate. I'm sure like you talked about before, like incorporating protein, fat, and carbs at all your meals. It's not really like a way to make it healthier, but just an all around health tip to make sure all macronutrients are represented. Little things like, using avocado oil or coconut oil or olive oil instead of something like canola oil, or putting like coconut oil, like on your toast. It's delicious. Like instead of something like butter, which is more saturated fats, not that there's anything wrong with a little bit of butter, but just looking for like little easy ways, to get your nutrients in. I always roast veggies on Sundays so that I have veggies to go because I know if I'm hungry, I'm getting hangry, I'm not going to wait to roast my veggies. So just having like little things ready to go, like little proteins cooked, so you can throw together like a really healthy meal. And I always say like, keep it simple. Like I'm a food blogger and like sometimes I'll make crazy dinners because I'm testing a recipe, but mostly it's like a rice bowl with like some roasted veggies and some chicken and like some fat. Like it's not a lot of fancy things because you don't need to make it all fancy and crazy to keep it healthy and yummy.
So would you say that most of the recipes that you create are much more complex than what you would normally make for yourself when you're cooking?
I think so, especially just because like at the end of the workday, and it's like, I don't want to make a big meal. I just want to make like a rice bowl. So I'll do that for the blog and then I'll test it. So we'll eat it for dinner and then take the pictures and then we'll eat it for dinner again. But like if I'm not doing work recipes, it's a lot simpler than what you see on the blog.
Well, and I would assume all the work that goes into creating a recipe, from actually figuring out the ingredients to getting the ingredients to like making it and making it look nice, which I've always been terrible at. And then photographing it, making sure you get the photos, making sure you're cooking it at the right time to have the right like light to get those photos.
It's so much.
Yeah. So I can imagine that would make it a little bit like exhausting to think about than making something complicated. But I mean, that's the thing, is most people don't realize that, like, yeah, those recipes are nice to have and, maybe special occasions, that kind of thing, but things don't have to be as complicated as I think people tend to make it. And I think a lot of people assume that people like you, who's a food blogger, or like me, who's a nutritionist, that we eat really complex meals. And when they find out that we don't, they're like, oh, well, why did I think I needed to? So
exactly. Simple is the best.
Now this is a little bit of a different question, but I've had some people ask before. Now I do not consider myself a blogger. Like, yes, I have a blog on my website, but blogging is not like the way that I make my money or anything like that. But I know there's a lot of people out there that would be curious just about the way that you have turned your blog into such a successful business. Do you have any tips for someone who's interested in becoming a blogger professionally?
Yeah, so I will say it's more challenging now because I did start 7 years ago when there was not very many of us, and now everybody has a blog. So I will, preface with that. But like the old adage, like if you build it, they will come, is like kind of true. Like you have to just spend time, but also spend time on quality. Like I think some people are just like, got to get lots of posts out, got to get lots of recipes out so I can have lots of things to pin on Pinterest. But that's not necessarily true. Like make sure you're putting quality time, and especially if you're doing food blogs, like if you just kind of make a recipe and just kind of don't spend very much time on it and someone makes it and it like sucks or doesn't work, like they're not going to come back. So like really make sure you're spending that time, get on social media, really make sure you're engaging with others or people on social media, because that's how they find you, and then like they'll reciprocate. So it's honestly, it's a lot of time. Like it's a lot of time to go and start developing a recipe and start engaging with other people and finding followers and all these kinds of things. But if you just put the time in, like eventually it will happen. And that might be in a year, might be in 2 years, might be in 6 months. You don't know, but you have to truly love it. Like so many people just want to do it because they see so many other people doing it and they think, oh, that must make money. But if you want to be like a blogger for full time, like do it and like hope and do it as like the money will maybe come, not doing it for the money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of belief around that, oh, it must be so fun and like, easy to just make this blog and all this money just comes to you. And I certainly think there's a lot of opportunity with online business in general that people don't realize. And so, this isn't saying that it's not possible to be successful, but like you said, you have to be providing valuable content, valuable services, whether that's, the content on the blog or that is actual coaching or consulting or something that you're doing. Don't just make a business online because you're like, well, I have nothing else to do. Or, it's like, you really want to make sure you have something to provide as a service and that you're willing to be consistent and willing to do the work. Because a lot of times people sound like they're an overnight success, but they don't realize you might have been working on something for years before it really took off. How long did it take you before your blog was providing like a full-time income?
Full-time income probably took me about 2 years. And that's very quick in blog world. I was really lucky because I was only working part-time when we first got married. And my husband was only working 3 days a week, and he's awesome. And he picked up an extra shift a week because his one shift covered my whole part-time, income. So then I was able to just after, 9 months, just really go full time with it. And I really do think that, helped. Not everyone has that situation. And like I said, it wasn't many, many years ago. And it probably would be different now, but it probably took me about 2 years to make a full-time income on it.
And that was working full-time on it.
Working 90 hours a week. It was ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah. I think people again think it's so easy and then they find out what it takes. And that doesn't mean it's not worth it. But like you said, you really got to love it and you really got to want to do it, and don't just do it because it's there's no such thing as a get rich quick scheme online. Everyone thinks they're, if I just do it the right way, it'll be successful. And yeah, there's strategies and tools and, things that can help, but, hopefully nobody's selling a get rich quick scheme. Sometimes it can sound like it when you look at certain programs and services that you can join to learn how to grow a business. But at the end of the day, you can get there faster, but it's not, like a pyramid scheme or something. It's not you just, do X, Y, Z, and then you're a successful blogger, a successful business owner, that kind of thing. So I have a couple more questions for you, and I appreciate you being so open with the audience and just sharing vulnerably about what you've been through and where you are now. What do you feel is your current purpose in life in general?
I think just to help women understand their worth and identity and value comes from Christ and nothing else, not from what they eat, not from their body, not from their business, not from their motherhood, not from their families. I just think that that's what I have gone through. And everything that I love, everything that I'm passionate about comes from that, specifically helping women separate their worth and identity, from their bodies, even if they do have goals, like we said. So I kind of feel I'm sort of walking in that purpose with what I share on my blog and in my book. So it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And is there anything that you have going on in your business? This podcast should come out about mid-July. Anything that you have going on in your current business that can help a woman who wants to really detach her self-worth from things of the world and put it in how God sees that person, or, what God's plan is for their life?
Yeah. Well, obviously my book, Eat the Cookie, is all about that. And then I do have a free guide called my Body, Mind, and Soul Guide, which will kind of give you some tips on that. And then I will be opening doors to my program, the Body, Mind, and Soul program, probably later this year, which is all about that.
Probably, I feel like 2020 is the year of probably, right?
Yeah, probably, maybe. I hope so.
Yeah, I've had some people ask me if I'm going to be opening my business coaching program again, because I just wrapped up the launch last month and we're almost a month in. I can't believe we're almost a month in now. It's kind of crazy. Actually, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be 6 weeks in. But what I was going to say is people are like, well, are you going to be relaunching in the fall? I'm like, hopefully, maybe. 2020 has been one of those years where literally nothing that's happening right now was my plan. So it's one thing. And that's, I kind of laugh because we were talking before about how you struggled with control and controlling your food, controlling your body, that kind of thing. And hopefully this year, most people are starting to realize that nothing is in our control. Other than, I always say that the only things that we have in our control are our thoughts and our beliefs, and then the actions we take in response to those thoughts and beliefs. So the result is not in your control. The world around us is not in your control. So the faster you can let go of that perceived control, the easier it'll be to actually live a life that you're happy with, because you're not focusing on trying to do something that is actually not even in your control, right? So, cool. Well, the last question I have for you is one that I ask all my guests, and that is, what do you believe makes a woman more than a body?
I mean, I think it's her soul. Like, it's who she is. It's what her friends say about her. Like, is she, a woman that serves God? Is she fun loving? Is she, like, what does God say about her? He says she's perfect and flawless. I think it's just who she is on the inside, which sounds so cliche, but I don't know how else to say it. Like, it's just all the deep things that make up the woman that are not her body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like our bodies are important to the fact that if our bodies are unhealthy or not being cared for well, it can get in the way of us living the best life that we have. Like, you were mentioning before, sometimes not resting as much as you should, that kind of thing. And I'm sure that you notice, because I noticed this too, if you're not resting enough, like maybe you snap more at people, or you're just more like emotionally distraught, or any of that stuff that can come from the physical health choices that you're making. Obviously, fixing that and getting to a place where you're taking care of your physical needs so that your mind and your body can function normally. But beyond that, it's kind of not that like meaningful, right? It's like there's plenty of people out there that have very serious health issues that are doing great things in the world. Lots of physically handicapped people that have full lives. So I think the more we can detach meaning from our bodies, and that doesn't mean that we just say, well, I'm just gonna eat Krispy Kremes at every meal and stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning. But it does mean that, chasing quote unquote perfectionism with your food, with your fitness, with your body fat percentage, all of that usually does not lead anyone to actually be happy or to have the impact on the world they want to have. Awesome. Well, like I said, Taylor, it was so great to chat with you and to get to share your story with my audience. I know that they're, I'm sure, going to want to check you out and learn more about what you have to offer. So where can they find you if they want to connect with you?
Well, my website is foodfaithfitness.com, and on Instagram, I'm always on Instagram, it's foodfaithfit.
Hopefully not on weekends.
Working on it.
Yes. Well, we are going to get Taylor off the interwebs a little bit more often than she's been on them. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Taylor, for your time and for sharing your story. And for all of you who spent the last 45 minutes or so with us, your time is so valuable. So we appreciate you hanging out with us as well. And we will see you here next time on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Hey there, Laura here again. Thank you so much for listening to the Fed and Fearless podcast. Your time is your most precious resource, and I'm so grateful that you choose to spend some of it with me. Now, if you're enjoying the podcast and want to continue supporting my work on this show, I would very much appreciate it if you would leave a review on iTunes. By leaving a 5-star review, you'll help others find the show and help me spread my message to a larger audience. You can go to fedandfearless.com/review to find a button that'll take you right to iTunes to leave your review. And I have a special gift for you as a thank you for helping me share the podcast. Once you leave your review, send a screenshot of the review to hello@lauraschoenfeldrd.com. Or you can DM it to me on Instagram @lauraschoenfeldrd. Once you do, I'll share a free copy of my Overcoming Undereating ebook. Then share a favorite podcast episode in your Instagram stories and tag me @lauraschoenfeldrd. And I'll also give you a free copy of my 14-day calorie challenge recipe guide. Together, these bonuses are worth $44 and will help you become Fed and Fearless. And you'll get them absolutely free for just helping me grow the podcast. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you here next week for the latest episode.